All right, it's 1:41. We're here a little bit early, just so that people can kind of slowly make their way in. I'm going to forgive me a moment. I'm going to go and put this up on my personal page as well. So anybody who's watching, just bear with me a moment. I can remember how to do it, of course. Here I am over on my page. Okay. Wants to tell me various groups I want to join. I don't want this. Yeah, we're alive. And there are 11 people watching this. And hopefully, here I am. And now I'm going to share this over on my personal page. Here we go. Post. All right. Terrific. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's 1:43, so I'm just going to blather for 2 minutes until 1:45, and then I will get going. What I'd really like to talk about is, well, my rock star hair, which today just looks like someone has been sleeping in this hair without ever combing it, which is true. But that's the joy of life during these pandemic times. We get to look like hell. It's just most of us aren't doing, I guess most people are doing Zoom meetings and stuff like that. I just got back from the studio and have been working on that painting of the paper mill. And so today I'm going to be talking about that and also about my plein air painting rig that I carry in the back of my car. It's not the painting rig, it's my plein air shade covering rig that people have expressed interest in over the years. If there are things that if you have questions, I'm not following along during this broadcast, but I will read the questions at the end and answer them. And if people have specific things they'd like me to talk about in future weeks, I'm happy to do that as well. Next week, my guest is going to be Jeff Olson, who is kind of the product liaison. He's a painter, but he's also the product liaison for Royal Talons North America. And we're going to talk about water mixable oils. And maybe we're going to talk about some other water mediums. Well, water mixable oils are not really a water medium, but we might talk about gouache. But we're certainly going to talk about water mixable oils and the mediums of that one uses with water mixable oils. So it is 1:45. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Reasonably Fine Art Discussion. It's wonderful to see you all out there in internet land. I'm here in my house in Bellows Falls, Vermont, because I have bad internet. Well, I have no internet, and I've got bad cell phone over at my studio, which is about half a mile away over in an old paper mill. I'm going to start out talking today about the setup that I use for the back of my car, because as many of you know, I'm gimpy in the right leg, so lugging plein air stuff around is not high on my list. Even if I wasn't gimpy, it would not be high on my list. I one time in about 2007, I think, climbed Mount Monadnock carrying a French easel, and even if I could do that today, I would not choose to do that today. It was a pain in the neck. So basically, most of the time, I paint out of the back of my car. And if I go to a plein air event, certainly the eastern ones like Cape Ann or Easton or Wayne, I will drive to. And so I have my rig, which I'll be showing you guys. If I fly or take the train somewhere, I rent a small SUV, and I just have to make do with that SUV gate, and that's what I hide under. Dan, could we have the first photograph? This is the worst photograph of all the photos, so it only gets better from here. And this is the least important, so I figured it was okay. This is the back of my Honda Element. The Honda Element, as you see, has a tailgate, and the rear window is a lift gate. So the back of the Honda Element is basically wide open. There are rear seats, the 2 individual seats, and you can remove them or you can have them go up on the side. I have removed the one on the passenger side, and I have put the one on the driver's side up. So my car has capacity of 3, but it has extra large amount of storage capacity. Next photo, Dan. Okay, this is the not very clean back of my car. I figure verisimilitude. That's what we're all about in the plein air painting world. Is that not true, ladies and gentlemen? This is the back of my car with my shade rig in its normal storage position. You can see the seat belt for the removed seat. In Elements, you can just snap the seat out and carry it in someplace and leave it. The cat enjoys shedding on the seat in the studio. So the seatbelt remains, though, and it actually serves as a wonderful retaining device for my shade rig. Next, there it is. That's the shade rig. So you can see the important components of it. The shade rig is a piece of coroplast, which is corrugated plastic. It is much like corrugated cardboard, except it is plastic. It's what they make those big outdoor campaign signs and lawn signs out of. It is a sheet of coroplast folded long way in half, and then there are grommets and carabiners and bungee cords and the snow scraper. Those are the components. So building one of these yourself will set you back about $24. Okay, next slide. This is the shade rig. Shade rig sounds like a character in the Bible, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This is the shade rig out of the car, unfolded. So you see it is 4 feet wide, so it folds down into being 2 feet wide, and it is 5 feet long. Then there are, you see the holes punched about 18 inches and 36 inches, something like that, 18, maybe 15 and 30, I don't know, on either side. Next one, Dan. There's a close-up of the hole as punched. It is a punch hole with a grommet in it to keep from ripping the plastic. And then the carabiner clips through that. Simple. So there are 4 of those. There are 2 on each side. Next slide, Dan. Then here it is, mounted to the roof, to the roof lift of the Element. So the tailgate is down, the roof, the window gate is up, and this is mounted onto the window gate. I just want to show you now so you can see what the finished thing looks like before I do a couple more detail shots. Next slide. This is the bungee cords going through the carabiners. Does that make sense, everybody? It is, you just lift this up, put it on top of the window lift, and then put the bungee cords through the carabiners, stretch it across, and hook it on the other side. It is surprisingly easy, and if you start with the bungee cords through the carabiners on one side, and then flip it up onto the roof gate, It is remarkable how seldom it flies off in the wind. Next slide. That shows the bungee cords going across the roof gate. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, I am 6'1", so I need to have headroom. So could I have the next slide? That shows how I get the headroom, which is I shoved the snow scraper right in the middle there. That's where it folds. The dark line there is the fold line. And so the scraper provides rigidity, and it also provides a way of scraping snow in the winter. But it provides the rigidity and lifts the coroplast up. So I will have an inch or 2 inches of head clearance there. Now notice the amount of nice diffused light that is coming through the coroplast. So it gets rid of the harsh light. If you've got an SUV, you know how the rear window, the rear gate, you have it lifted up, but you've still got light streaming through. This takes care of that. And so it provides even light, and it provides fantastic rain cover. Next slide. There it is. That's the final, what it looks like. So if it's raining, I fold up the tailgate and see the amount of space, the amount of workable space that I now have. If it's raining really hard and at an angle, that is what a snow scraper looks like, yes. If it's raining really hard and at an angle, it's not going to work. But nothing's going to work. But if it is raining gently, the rain goes off the sides, and you can just paint away, and you've got basically a 4-foot by 5-foot rain-free area. If it is not raining and is sunny, then I will tend to fold the gate down, which gives a little less area, but a really nice flat surface to put one's brushes and stuff on. Next slide. Dan, next slide. Hey, good. That shows it with the gate folded up from the rear, with the snow scraper in the middle. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my my setup. Now, I've had this since 2014. Yeah, 2014. It has always worked. It has never broken. It is perfect in its simplicity, in my opinion. And as I say, it'll set you back about $24. Any hardware store is going to have those carabiners and the bungee cords and the snow scraper, and your local sign shop will have coroplast. They will cut it to the size, as they say. I have it 5 feet long, and they will install the grommets. That sheet of coroplast cost me, I think it was $18, including the grommets and punching. All right, so that is the end of part 1 of today's Reasonably Fine Art Talk. I hope that was useful. If you have any questions about it, just put it in the comments and I will answer as I can. The second part of today's Reasonably Fine Art Talk is going to be a discussion of the current, of kind of what I'm exploring during the pandemic time. Normally, I'd be doing a bunch of plein air events. I would be looking forward in July. I was going to be doing Easton, Maryland. And then from Easton, I was going to take the overnight train out to Milwaukee and then rent a car and go up and do Door County plein air up in Door County, Wisconsin. Then I was going to take the train from Milwaukee out to Salt Lake City and do a week of printmaking with my friend, the painter Doug Fryer. But all that has been changed. Instead, I am having the art fellowship that I have always wanted, in my very own studio, and I am having my meals at the house, and I have my companions, the cats, and Betty Sue and I tend to watch movies on Netflix. We synchronize our Netflix in the evenings, and so every day I go to the studio and I work for a few hours, and this is the project. This is what I'm. Well, I've got probably about a dozen pieces that I'm working on, but to one degree or another. But this is sort of the way I'm drilling down. Could I have the first slide, Dan? This is a painting that I did back in the early aughts when I was just painting for myself. And I was being water boy. I remember when I did this painting. It's about probably 24 by 36, I think, on a cheap pre-stretched canvas. I was being water boy for a workshop where my studio used to be the drawing studio for something called the Great River Arts Institute, which was basically, it was like Scottsdale Artist School sort of thing. Except it was much more aspirational. It was an unsuccessful adult art workshop entity. And I made a deal with them that I would get to take the workshops for free in exchange for being water boy. That is, if somebody needed, if the visiting artist, if Stuart Chills needed to be picked up at the Amtrak and driven to the inn, I would pick him up at the Amtrak and drive him to the inn and take him to the workshop the next day. And if any student needed coffee, I would get coffee. I would do whatever was needed. But I got to take all these classes for free. And this was with a wonderful Asian painter named Paul Chingbor, Ching-BOR. I would highly recommend you guys look his stuff up. He does watercolor, huge, like 6 foot high watercolors. And he does very precise ink paintings underneath, and then he messes them up deliberately to break out of the harsh literalness that a Chinese art education kind of seared into his mind. Anyway, so we were down. This is the passageway between the paper mill where my studio is and the abandoned paper mills that are below it. The abandoned mills are the former Moore and Thompson paper mill. This gantry-way is a very distinctive part of this particular passage. And I find it very haunting. The gantry-way is, I don't know if that's the correct term, but I'm just calling it that. That is the passageway, the aerial passageway between the paper mill where the studios are and the abandoned paper mills. This painting is looking the opposite direction from all the other paintings that you'll see today. But this was a plein air piece, as I said, 2 feet by 3 feet, just painted one afternoon when I was just learning about oil painting and certainly didn't even know the term plein air. So I was studying at this time with Dennis Sheehan. So you can see kind of the rubbing out. The lightest light is the surface itself. So it looks like I put that kind of the burnt sienna, and I must have mixed it with another yellow, and then I kind of rubbed it out. So that's what provides the kind of glow look. And when I did this painting, Paul Chingbor thought that this painting was the bee's knees, and I thought this painting was the bee's knees. And I knew I still had it. I put it away for years. And when I started pulling together the slides for today's discussion, I knew I still had this, and so I dug it out, and it's so much cruder than I thought it was. In my mind, it's almost identical to the stuff that you'll see, but that's one of the really strange things about about memory, is that memory lies like a rug. Let's move on to the next one, Dan. So these were, there are two of these 3 foot by 6 foot paintings that I did of this same area. I did these in 2016. This one is in the collection of Joanne Manji in Connecticut, the accomplished portraitress of dogs and horses. And Joanne, God love her, thought that this would look great in her house. When I painted this, I was not thinking that America needed paintings of abandoned paper mills, but apparently America does. So this is pulled back. It's virtually the same viewpoint as the painting that I did this March. So anyway, this is Morin Thompson in Twilight, owned by Joanne Manji. Next slide, Dan. This is a very bad photograph because it's got a whole bunch of glare of Morin Thompson 2, which is owned by my friend Lynn Wellings. There's something that haunts me about this scene. And I talked last week about riding on the railroad when I was picking up rolls of paper in the early 70s. Maybe that's part of why it haunts me. It also reminds me of Piranesi and just the idea of this abandoned industrial might. And so I've painted this any number of times. And I just wanted here in this one to emphasize kind of the lens flare, the light on the hillside in back, the stark shapes. So I'm a big fan of revisiting what feels like right objects. That's a term in fiction where an object recurs throughout a book or a short story. So this set of paper mills, for some reason, is sort of my right objects. Next one, Dan. This is the one I showed last week, Morin Thompson 2020. That's a wider panorama, and you'll see, but you can see the same elements treated really differently. Next one, Dan. Okay, this is taken from the front seat of the element. This is an actual photograph of the paper mill in the background. And then in the foreground is the sketch that I did sitting in the front seat of my car this April. And this is what April looks like in Vermont, ladies and gentlemen. It's a time of festivity and fun. Ezra, who's refinishing the 3rd floor of my house, is going to walk through here in a second. So just be aware when someone walks through, that's Ezra. But anyway, this was April. This was a charcoal sketch that I did sitting, I believe it's charcoal, sitting in the car. And this is the passageway that I find so haunting. Next photo, Dan. This is obviously a close-up of the sketch. And so I did it from 3:45 to 5 o'clock on April 5th, 2020, with extra hard general pencil, charcoal pencil. Here comes Ezra. Don't talk, Ezra. No. Okay. Social distancing. Next photo. Okay, this is a couple of days ago, I was flipping through my sketchbooks because I've had this canvas, 30 by 30 canvas which for the last 5 years, whenever I have had extra paint on my palette, I just kind of wiped it onto this canvas, mostly because it was a painting that was not very good, and this way I could get out my hostilities on it. And then after about 2 years, I decided, well, this is sort of interesting to see if I'll ever be able to do something with this canvas. So I was looking at the canvas, and I was flipping through my sketchbooks to see if there was anything where I detected any similar rhythms or blocks, or just did anything in this random collection of marks resonate with any of the sketches in my sketchbook. And I felt like I saw a similar movement between the sketch and what was going on in that painting, or on that surface. So I took a photo with my cell phone of my sketchbook, and you'll see. Is it possible to go back, Dan? Yeah, great. Okay, this is the actual sketch. So you'll see, look at the difference in the angle of the gantry-way and the structure. That is, the gantry-way is what we're calling the thing on the top, okay? And then the structure itself, it's basically a little bit less than a 90-degree angle, which did not quite have the dynamism that I was feeling from looking at the surface, okay? The messy surface. So now, Dan, move forward. See, so when I took that photo, I bent it, I took the photo at an angle. And so it makes things have kind of a more drama to them. That was not something that I needed to investigate when I was doing my sketch, but it's a way that we can adapt our sketches to be armatures toward finished pieces. Next one, Dan. Okay, so this was, I wish I had taken a photo of the surface before I started painting it, but I didn't. So this is the very first thing that I did when I decided I was going to work on this. So you can see that it was just a bunch of all the dark marks here are what the entire surface looked like. The white is, I took my trusty gallon of Kills primer, because it's super opaque, it bonds to oil paint, and it dries quickly. I love it. So I took the Kills, and you see over on the left on the easel, I had that printout of my sketch. Okay, so it's sketchbook to cell phone picture to printout. I'm just looking back and forth, drinking coffee and going, and not obsessing about getting the shapes right, just trying to get the feel, just trying to get that dynamism that I want to express. Because remember what I said, what I say is we as painters are storytellers, and everyone should buy my new video because I talk about that a lot in the new video. And also everyone should buy the video because the cats need to eat. Okay. Anyway, so that was what I did. That took about 45 minutes maybe to do those shapes. Next photo, Dan. Now, at the same time, I wanted to do a more disciplined version of this. So I took the photograph and I projected it. I took the photograph of my sketch, okay, and projected it. Now, I use a projector on my big stuff a lot. I believe it must be sort of like, I know it's kind of a dirty secret, but a lot of painters do. And that is part of why I think a drawing practice is so important, because if you are going to be using artificial things like this, you've got to be able to back it up with actual skill. It just projecting stuff is gonna it's gonna bite you in the ass eventually. Okay, you can get away with it for a while, but it'll get you in the end. Also, remember that I am working here from a drawing of the paper mill. I'm not working from a photograph. I would highly, highly recommend, if you do projection, to work from drawings rather than from photos. Why? Because you've already figured out, in the armature of the drawing, you have figured out most of the design questions that are going to come up, and they're going to be impossible. The notes that you are putting down on the surface with a pencil or charcoal or whatever are going to be you're not going to be able to figure out what the notes are if you're trying to draw, if you're tracing a photograph. Once the photo is gone, you'll be like, what was I looking at? Okay, so you see my ancient laptop, and then a projector and the projected image. Next slide, Dan. This is a close-up, so it's a 30 by 30. That is the image projected onto the surface. This surface is gator board with muslin glued onto it. Next slide, Dan. Yes, Phil Shawy, drawings. That's how I say drawings. I say drawings for drawings. I know I do it wrong. That's how I do it. So this is the first pass of paint on that projected drawing, okay? As I said, 30 by 30. This is I'm trying to use up some old Winsor Newton artisan water mixable paint. So this is burnt sienna and their Viridian. The reason I switched from Winsor Newton to Cobra, Cobra is manufactured by Rembrandt, is because the quality control on Winsor Newton went to hell when they got purchased by a hedge fund. And I was at the Wayne plein air and opened up a new tube of Viridian, and it really doesn't mix with water. It forms these little green, tiny green pellets. It's like green sand. And it screwed me over at Wayne that year. And if you cannot trust your art supplies, if you do this for a living, it's not a joke. I mean, it's like they lost all credibility with me. Cobra is superb quality. And as I say, we'll be talking with Jeff tomorrow, next week, about Cobra stuff. So anyway, this is using up the last of my Winsor Newton. But it is, and the brush I'm using, see how big and flat the brush marks are? The primary brush in this is a Princeton, I believe it's called like a Citation. It's about it's like the chip brushes that I use. It's about 2.5 inches wide, but it is maybe an 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's very expensive, and it's a beautiful brush. Makes me very happy. Okay, next slide, Dan. Okay, here are these are the two pieces that I'm working on simultaneously. Below, at the bottom there, is the piece that was the old Junker surface that I just free-handed the negative shapes, or the positive shapes, free-handed the white on with the kills. And this is, I've started to work that surface. I've started to work that painting a little bit, and we'll have close-ups of that in a minute. And then this other one, the one on the top, is the more formal projection of my drawing. Okay? Just wanted you to see those two together. I think it's wonderful to be working on a couple of major variants on the painting at the same time, because you're going to come up with questions about, or your brain's going to say, oh, that'd be fun to try. That'd be fun to try. But it's not appropriate for that first, for the one that you're working on. So right now, right before I came over here, I was working for the last couple hours on the one that's on the top. And it now looks a little bit different. Let's go on to the next slide, Dan. Now, this is where I got to yesterday, I believe, on the junker. That, remember, this is the kills on top of a dark surface. And you can see the tree branches going from the main, on the right-hand side, through the dominant verticals. And then there are kind of these more balletic, thinner marks that go kind of diagonally middle right to upper left. That was done with the heel, just the heel of a brush. So I'm holding the brush like this, and I'm just going like, okay? And then I am doing water mixable oil washes on top of the kills. Next slide, Dan. So this is, that's damn similar. What the hell? Oh, no. It is damn similar, but this is very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. Go back one, Dan. Okay, see the top? Look at the gantry. I was really, really happy with how, what I'm hearing in my mind is something where you can make out there's a lot of noise, but you can make out the melody in that noise. And if you look at the structure on the left, that feels to me, it has the gravity of the buildings. You know that's a building. And if you look on the right, you're aware that those are trees. And then you look up at the gantry-way, and the gantry-way is so damn literal. It's just this strong, slightly diagonal, horizontal, that when I did it, it made me happy. But then as I worked on the painting, it felt so heavy. It felt so literal. And I want it to be a little bit wilder, a little bit more broken up. It ends up being stodgier than the rest of the painting. Next slide, Dan. So yesterday afternoon, the last thing I did before quitting for the day was to take my trusty gallon of kills and just kind of slather that on to knock out the harshness of the of that horizontal made by the gantry-way. Now you see I left the whole place where the gantry-way attaches to the building on the left, because I love that. And I just really want to lighten it in the middle. I want it to be there, but I want to almost lose it and then have it come back, okay? So I let that dry overnight, and kills will dry overnight. And then you have a surface that you can paint on. Next slide, Dan. That's a close-up of what it looked like. And, you have to be willing to, well, Stephen King in his book on writing makes a wonderful point. He talks about killing your darlings, which is you may have a brilliant little bit of writing, but if you find yourself writing around that bit of writing, you probably have to get rid of that bit of writing. And there's some killing of darlings. He calls that killing your darlings. And there's a bit of that going on here. I had to say goodbye to some bits that I loved. Okay, next slide. So that's what it looked like as of yesterday when I left. That's what I looked like yesterday before I did that final bit of putting the white on to kill the harshness of the entryway. Next slide, Dan. And that's what it looks like now, today. That's just a quick snapshot from the camera. I haven't tried to balance the colors at all. Whereas the one yesterday, I worked harder on balancing the colors. But look at the bottom edge of that horizontal of the gantry-way. See how I broke it up? Got it? So I broke it up. I've gone and I've put washes on top of the white, so it maintains the horizontal, but it's now speaking much more the language of the rest of the painting. Okay? So that's today's Reasonably Fine Art Talk. This is not done yet, but I wanted to kind of take you through the process, both how I'm kind of conceptually thinking about it and the technical aspects of how I go about doing some of this stuff. The thing I am thinking about now is, see, this slide, the contrast, the cell phone camera wants to pump the contrast up a little bit, and on the phone itself, it's got a contrast slider that supposedly lessens the contrast, but it really doesn't. In Photoshop, I could adjust this to make it look more like how it actually looks. But yes, yesterday, that's closer in the color world. Flip back to the as it is now. So color is a little bit wrong, but the gantry-way is the way I want it now. It relates, the whole thing relates much better. The question I'm thinking about now a lot is in the bottom half, specifically from those white horizontals on down to the bottom of the painting. This is, as things are getting closer to the viewer, do I want to make the marks get a little bit smaller? Let's go back to the previous one, Dan, because the colors are better. Okay, so right now, this goes a little yellow, but the contrast, the relative contrast of the bottom third are closer to reality. Do I want to leave it like that, or do I want to break it up a little bit more? Let's go back to as it is now, Dan. Yeah. See, ladies and gentlemen, you see what do I want to make the scale of the marks toward the foreground smaller, or is that going to make things look too tame, too contrived? Because what I'm wanting right now is to have this really be something that is noise, but the image still triumphs. And if you tame that noise too much, does it become a deadened thing? Join us next week, and I'll give you an update on where it got to. Thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for watching this. If you've got questions or suggestions, put them in the comments. I am here to be useful. And as I said, be sure to buy the new video. That's really what I'm here for. All right, take good care, everybody. Wash your hands. Do the right thing. Take it easy. Bye-bye.